Good day, student. Welcome. This is a diploma. The qualification is Diploma in Education Secondary. The module is Biology, Module 2. The code of these modules is DES Bio22. This information will guide you on how to answer the examination question. This information, we are not telling you like these are the questions that will be there, but we are giving you guidelines on the topic that you should pay attention to. My name is Viji Shilongo, as indicated on the slide there. Now, pay attention to the following topics. The breathing system. The breathing system, pay attention to the organs. The organs means the different group of different tissue that make up the breathing system. Their functions and adaptation to their function. For example, pay attention to the alveolus, pay attention to the trachea, the bronchiole, the bronchus, and how this structure are adapted to their function. Now, with the breathing system, very straightforward information. The structures such as the windpipe, the bronchiole, the bronchus, this structure, they have one function, which is to allow air to enter. Therefore, we call them air passage. Now, the alveoli, very different parts. It has, you can look at the thin wall there. You look at in terms of the round shape. You look at in terms of which gases enter the alveoli and which gases diffuses out of the alveoli, which blood vessels surround the alveoli. Familiarize yourself with such information, as well as how the structure of an alveoli is adapted to its function. We move on to the next topic, the difference between respiration and breathing. These two topics, these two terminology are very different from each other. Please, you should be able to distinguish between them. Now, respiration, let's look at respiration. Respiration is the releasing of energy. Your definition must have that terminology. Releasing of energy inside the cells from the food substances. Remember, respiration takes place inside our cells or plant cells in a structure called mitochondria. On the other hand, breathing occurs outside the cells. Breathing is the mechanism whereby we take in oxygen-rich air, inhaling of oxygen-rich air, and exhaling of carbon dioxide-rich air. Take note, respiration takes place inside the cell, breathing takes place outside the cells. Now, you should also be able to familiarize yourself with different type of respiration. And when I'm talking about this different type of respiration, I'm referring to aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration, as well as which condition does aerobic respiration take place and under which condition does aerobic respiration take place. Within the breathing system, make sure you understand changes that take place to the different parts that makes up a breathing system as a person breathes in and when a person breathes out. Breathing in, we use one term called inhalation. Breathing out, exhalation. Pay attention to the muscles, the external intercostal muscles, the internal intercostal muscles, the rib cage, the diaphragm. Such muscles you need to be able to understand. Read through, you have the information there in your book. Read through to see what are the changes that take place when you breathe in and when you breathe out. The next one, the excretory system. The excretory system is also a system which is found in all living organisms, be it plants and be it animals. Now, looking at the excretory system, specifically in animals, you should be able to know the definition of excretion. Let's quickly look at that. Excretion is the releasing of metabolic waste product, substances that are in excess than what the body requires, as well as toxic materials. So we excrete only the waste product of metabolism. When you are talking about the waste product of metabolism, we are referring to the waste product that are produced inside our cells. Please do not confuse excretion with ingestion. Ingestion has to do with the releasing of undigested food from the anus as feces. We don't excrete feces because feces never was part of our cells. Feces is just undigested food and bacteria which remain in the alimental canal, and they are transported to the rectum as well as the colon, and we expel it out of our body. But please, we excrete waste product of metabolism. What are these waste? Example are urine, sweat, and carbon dioxide. When we exhale, meaning that when we breathe out carbon dioxide, we are excreting. When we sweat, we are excreting. When we urinate, we are excreting, because these waste products are produced or are end product of our chemical reaction that take place inside our cells. Now, the organs that make up the excretory system, pay attention to the kidneys. Pay attention also to the different tubes that are found or associated with the kidney, such as the urethra, the renal artery, the renal vein, the urethra, as well as the bladder and the ureter. Know their function, and you should also be able to label those different structures that I just mentioned. What did I say? The renal artery, the renal vein, the aorta, the vena cava. Those are blood vessels, but they are found associated with the kidney. Please, you need to know how to which one is a renal artery, which one is a renal vein, which one is aorta, as well as which one is vena cava. Always take note, aorta carry blood rich in oxygen, but again take note of that. The blood in aorta is also rich in urea, because this is the blood which is flowing to the kidney, which need to be filtered in the kidney. So that's why it still has urea. But the blood in vena cava, it does not contain, it has less urea, but more carbon dioxide. Now, let's look at this. So you should also be able to say their function there. The function of the kidney to produce urine, make sure you know that, as well as metabolic waste. As I said earlier, the metabolic waste are waste product produced inside our cells. An example, as I said, we have urea produced in the liver. We do have carbon dioxide, which is produced in the cells as a product of respiration. And we also have sweat, which is produced under our skin, where we have glands called the sweat glands. Remember the glands, like the tear glands, the salivary glands, they secrete. Just like they secrete, salivary glands secrete saliva, tear glands secrete tears, as well as when we are referring to the glands such as those glands, so take note, they secrete. Now, kidney failure, I'm actually trying to say, take note of the glands, as I mentioned earlier, that sweat glands secrete sweat. Now, kidney failure, there are certain situations where a human kidney stops functioning. When a kidney stops functioning, it is unable to remove urea from the blood. The urea remains in the blood, accumulate in the blood, and start to poison the cell organ, the cell body, making a person to be sick. And if nothing is done to remove urea, the human being can die because of the toxic from the urea and ammonia which is in the blood, which is not removed. Now, kidney failure is when the kidney stop functioning. Now, dialysis and kidney transport. Dialysis, it's a machine where a person is put on to help filter urea out of the blood. So the dialysis and kidney transplant are certain ways of helping a person remove urea if their kidney stop functioning, which we call kidney failure. Now, you should be able to familiarize yourself with dialysis, a machine, how it works. You can also see that in your book there's a diagram indicating how blood flows in the human body and out of the human body, and the function and the different part and the different function associated with that. And you should also be able to, the advantage of a dialysis. The advantage of dialysis in terms of that, it can save a person's life. A person who continue to live a normal life because their urea is filtered out of the blood. You should also be able to know the disadvantage of dialysis. Now, one of the disadvantages indicated in your book is that it is time consuming. You need to go to the hospital twice or 3 times a week in order to have your blood filtered. Another thing is that the disadvantage of dialysis is that there are certain food that you will be prevented from eating because you don't have kidney like a normal human being without a kidney failure. Now, kidney transplant is also another way where a person can get help, those people with a kidney failure. Kidney transplant is when a person received a new kidney. Now, for you to receive a new kidney, you need to receive it from a person with a matching blood group. You must have a matching blood group. We cannot just receive, for example, my kidney stop functioning, if I have a kidney failure, I will not just receive a kidney from anyone. That person who is giving me a kidney, we must belong to the same blood group. Now, there are disadvantages and the advantage of a kidney transplant. The advantage is that once you receive it, you can live a normal life. You don't have to worry about going to the hospital twice a week. You can live a normal life. No one will even know that you had a kidney failure. The disadvantage is that the operation is costly And another disadvantage is that there might not be a kidney, a matching kidney. You might not have a donor you might not receive a person with a matching kidney. Another thing is that even though you receive a kidney, a matching kidney, is that you still need to receive medicine we call immunosuppressant drugs that help to suppress your immune, just to make sure that you don't suffer from tissue rejection. So those are some of the advantage and disadvantage. So familiarize yourself with the advantage and the disadvantage of kidney transplant as well as dialysis. Now, the element of coordination, the next topic, the element of coordination, response in plants and in human. Element of coordination, we are referring to how plants respond to stimulus. Remember, stimulus is a sudden, unpredictable change in an environment. Plants respond to stimuli by moving toward that stimuli or away from the stimuli. A very good example is a branches of a tree or a shoot of a tree. You see it that it tends to move either up, down, or right or left in a response to the stimuli. The stimuli can be light, it can be gravity. Now, in this topic of element of coordination, it also involves things, chemical substances or plant growth substance called ozone. The element of coordination and response in plant and in human is quite a long chapter. You need to make sure you plan and give enough time. Under this topic, you also have, this is where you have the hormones, and this is where you have the this is where you have hormones as well as the nervous system. You should be able to distinguish between hormonal system as well as the nervous system in terms of how fast it is, what it responds to. You should also be able to know the different hormones in human beings, hormones such as adrenaline. What is the function of adrenaline? How adrenaline functions in the human body. Remember, adrenaline is that hormone which prepares us for action, either to fight or flight. So you should be able to know those hormones such as insulin, hormones such as glucagon. Take note, glucagon and insulin, these are blood sugar hormone. These are hormones that help to control the blood glucose level. So that means homeostasis is also, you should also pay attention to the topic of homeostasis. Another topic, the reproductive system, both in plants and in animals. The reproductive system in plants, we are referring to the parts that make up the reproductive system in male, the reproductive system in plants. You need to know their parts, and remember, reproductive an organ where reproduction occurs in plants. It is a flower where you have the different parts such as the anther, the stigma, the ovary, the ovule, the style. Should be able to know it. Also familiarize yourself with the concept of pollination, the difference between wind-pollinated flower and insect-pollinated flower, as well as the different structure that make up the male reproductive system, the female reproductive system such as the oviduct, the uterus, and their function. You should also be able to familiarize yourself with that. Method of feeding in infant, the pros and cons. Method of feeding means in human beings, we can either breastfeed, mother can either breastfeed or bottle feeding. You should be able to know the advantage and the disadvantage of these two methods of feeding. Birth control method, quite different methods there. We start from natural, mechanical, chemical, and surgical method. And you have seen in your book, you have a table that classify different method, different birth control method, or natural, the one that are example of natural birth control method, chemical birth control method, mechanical as well as surgical. So you need to know how effective they are, how can we use them, the example, as well as the advantage and the disadvantage. So in your textbook, there's a nice table which distinguish them. Familiarize yourself there. STDs. When you're talking about STD here, we're talking about sexual transmitted disease. Familiarize yourself with the signs, the symptom, preventative method, and consequences. Here we are referring to the syphilis, the gonorrhea, and HIV. In terms of the sign, the symptom, the preventative method, how do we prevent it, and the consequences, the economic social consequences of HIV or gonorrhea or syphilis. Homeostasis, as I mentioned earlier, familiarize yourself with the definition and everything under the heading of homeostasis. Pollination, as I said earlier, pollination is part of the reproduction in plants. Pollination in terms of what is pollination, what is the difference between insect pollination and wind pollinated plants. Menstruation cycles, you should be able to familiarize yourself with menstruation cycles in terms of the two hormones that regulate the menstruation cycle, estrogen and progesterone, and what is happening at the beginning. Let's say menstruation cycle is a 28 cycle. From day 1 to day 5, what is happening in the uterus lining? On day 14, what is happening in the uterus lining and what is happening in the ovary? You should be able to know that. Remember, the uterus lining will be more thicker on day 14, and in the ovary, the follicle will burst and release the egg. When the follicle does not have an egg, now we call it the graphial follicles. And you should be able to know what is the function of that graphial follicles. Remember, it will start to secrete progesterone, and if no fertilization take place, it will die. And the uterus lining will not be maintained because there will be less progesterone. Please, very, very intense topic. Familiarize yourself. As I said again, student, please, for you to complete your work, and this is the examination, you need to make sure you really use your Saturday. You can also use your weekday in the afternoon or in the evening. Use it to study. Especially this module, it has quite a lot of topic. Therefore, you need to make sure there is enough time for it. From breathing system until menstruation cycle. So familiarize yourself there.